Hello and welcome to Talking Development. Fragility, conflict, and violence are reshaping the development landscape. Today, more than half of people living in extreme poverty are in FCV-affected countries, and that share continues to grow. In these contexts, jobs are not just an economic priority, they are central to stability, dignity, and hope, especially for young people entering the workforce in record numbers. As the World Bank Group refreshes its approach to FCV, expanding economic opportunity is a key focus. And in fragile setting, most jobs come from the private sector, making entrepreneurs and business leaders essential partners. I am so pleased to be joined by two leaders who are creating jobs and opportunities in challenging environments. Basima Abdulrahman, founder and CEO of KESK in Iraq, and Brian Kelly, founder and CEO of Anzana Electric Group, which develops and operates electric utilities across Africa. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you very much.
Basima, let me start with you. You started a company in Iraq just at the end of a very, very heavy conflict period. And there must have been so much uncertainty, yet you set out to start this company. Tell us about your experience.
Definitely, Anna. When we started the company, I established it back in October 2018. So the country just concluded the military operations to liberate major parts of Iraq from the hand of the terrorist group ISIS. There was like a transition from emergency to stabilization. And it was actually might be too early for a business that is designed and built around development to start. So when I established the company, my whole purpose and mission is to do the things I love the most, which is promoting sustainable solutions and helping in somehow reducing the impact, even at the tiniest level. It's something I felt like it would help me personally to feel good about myself, to sleep better at night. I felt like there must be a bigger role to play. And starting from this small consulting firm and expanding it into this bigger operations, including construction of solar energy systems and bringing solar energy solutions, it just became what it is today.
Brian, I want to turn to you. You've been active in East and Central Africa for about 2 decades in the electricity sector, which of course is a huge development need in Africa. 2 decades is a long time. You must have learned so much during this time. What were some of the success factors? What did it take to start up, but also to stay?
What we've seen is that the success stories come from somewhat unexpected places. They come from a place of taking a political vision and making sure that it happens. So governments don't always have the flexibility to force through decisions that allow infrastructure to get built. And so that means that there are entrenched interests, there are challenges to upsetting the status quo, even if there's a model available for it. And so where we've seen the most success is countries like Burundi. We've built a couple of power projects there, and we're working on a public-private partnership to electrify more than half the country. That's a model that, we're borrowing from other parts of the world, not necessarily other parts of Africa. And it's the political vision to say, look, we need to change something about our economic trajectory, and we need to set up the right environment to make sure that happens. But the best way to demonstrate that environment is to actually demonstrate that you can get a deal done, that you can get a transaction done, and more will flow. So we started out with transactions around generation, which are easier in the power sector, and there's more of a regional familiarity with private sector involvement. But when you get into large-scale distribution, there's basically nothing to look at regionally that says, okay, this is how we should go about doing this. This is the template we should create. So if you come back to the origin of the company, we wanted to create this template. We're now able to do it in Burundi. And as soon as we've been able to do it in Burundi, we're having discussions with other leaders who are looking to create something that are kind of win-win solutions where the infrastructure gets built that allows the economic growth to follow.
Yeah, very good. I'm going to stay with you, Brian, and then come back to you, Basima. A key focus in our new FCB Refresh strategy is to create jobs. In fact, it's a key strategy for the World Bank Group everywhere. But it's particularly getting attention for FCB settings because we recognize the role that particularly small to medium, maybe even micro enterprises have to play. Can you share with us, just briefly, how did you experience the job creation process for your company? And Basima, same question for you. How was it possible to create jobs in a fragile setting, and any particular learning coming from both of you that we can actually use as part of our strategy rollout?
Yeah, well, happy to share. In the case of Burundi, we've now commissioned a hydro project, the first privately built hydro project in the country. We're halfway through a second one. Each of those has created hundreds of jobs, over 300 on the first one, and probably similar number on the second one. The foundation to that, of course, is the transaction itself, the ability to work with the government to sign a long-term bankable contract and allow us to invest capital to build these things. We've hired Burundian firms, Burundian locals to create those jobs. Now that's generation, and that generation feeds into the grid and to the population and to industry. On that end, there are jobs being created through factories that have better power supply. On the distribution side and building out a power network, that's when you really see the transformation. Right? We'll employ over 1,000 people directly, and the construction process will employ thousands more. But it's about creating the opportunities in villages, towns, and other rural areas that don't have the ability to build industry, that don't have the ability to take advantage of processing facilities or other job creation centers, right? Whether it's a small micro business or it's a larger industry. Without the electricity present, you're not going to find a lot of opportunities to build a company, create jobs at the local level. And so we're trying to do that. I think the last thing I would add is that we are also thinking about, being intentional. We don't want to sign up to a very big contract with the government and say, we're going to build out a whole network. We're going to invest $1 billion together with Mission 300 partners. And then not have the workforce to do it. So we've already started investing upfront in building training centers for the electricity sector. We realize that once we've built the poles and wires that come to somebody's house, there needs to be a whole team of electricians to wire households, to help businesses use that electricity. It's not going to happen naturally. You need to have a trained workforce. So the electricity workforce will be significant. What it unlocks by just having electricity, that's a whole different ballgame, and one that we're happy to play a small role in.
I love everything you've said, the direct employment generated, the indirect opportunities and employment generated, and then the investment you're making in skilling, because you're going to need these skills, so you're also investing upfront. Basima, what about you? What was your experience in Iraq?
It's very much similar, actually, because the difference is that we don't work in what we do. We have projects all across, and could be from smaller systems as small as 20, 50 kilowatt up to multi-megawatt projects in every governorate or location. The business model we have adopted is that we do have our core team, which is our direct employees, and then we also have the unskilled labor or the skilled labor that we hire for these projects, that per project, but also it's a skill that we develop, that skill transfer aspect of it. And then beyond that, we have also the subcontract agreement with dozens of smaller companies where we do knowledge transfer and we outsource some of the operations that are small scale. They benefit financially, and these companies hire employees, and we have stack of contracts with these companies that we deploy tens of projects for monthly, and the ecosystem we're building also for them, and they do hire also their locals. So when we talk about employment, in reality, it's more of a network for us. So there are the directs and the indirect, and then another level of indirect, because when we hire for those projects that we implement ourselves, large scale, require more heavy engineering and monitoring, we also hire skills for it.
Yeah.
And the labors and the training we do, on the job training they get, it's a skill that they will always have and help them in continuing in generating their livelihood around this sector.
Wonderful. Also very inspiring, direct, indirect. And what you describe, I love that you used the word ecosystem. It was coming to my mind, but also the phrase virtuous circle, because you're creating opportunity that creates opportunity, creates opportunity. I love that. Final question and a very brief answer. You're the private sector. What is one thing that you think the public sector needs to do to support business leaders like you in creating business opportunities in an FCV setting from your experience? What would be the one policy or measure or investment that the government should do? Let me start with you, Basima, this time.
Protect our rights. For example, in our setting, in the business setting where we are at, we are expected to do everything 100%, but also our rights are not, and investments are not protected. So one of the issues we have, we're competing with shops, with entities that has no legal existence. They don't employ the skills that we employ. And at the same time, we're competing with these small shops and service providers that are informal. We need this protection. We need to be treated like entities that, when we're in the market, what we provide has no competition to. We cannot lower our standards to meet what the small shops are providing. And at the same time, we're obligated to provide everything without questioning, the authorities. So we need to be protected to be able also to protect our investments and to protect these jobs as well.
Brian, what about you?
I'd say the most important kind of signaling effect is to actually just, in a lot of the countries we're working in, there aren't uses of some of the policies that they already have. So for example, the investment codes or a lot of the reforms are in place. I think for the electricity sector, start with liberalization, allow private sector to participate. But once you've done that, then do a transaction. Show them that these actually work, and that if they need to be tweaks in order to attract capital, then tweak them. But once you have somebody through the door, successful, talking about it at forums like this, then others will follow. And that's really what you need.
Yeah. So very similar in many ways, both of you are pointing out, and no surprise that that is in fact one of 3 core elements we believe it takes to create jobs in the developing world and in FCV settings. Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing your insights and also for being with us. So this experience, I think what we just heard, reminds us that even in the most difficult context, businesses can create jobs, strengthen resilience, and open pathways to opportunity. But they also highlight the official role of governments in creating the conditions for investment, for growth, and for job creation. Thank you for watching today, and I'll see you next time on Talking Development.